We've been here before. William, in his introduction, talked a bit about where we were in 1983. When it comes to the exchange rate, we all very much sound as though we're yearning for a return of the fixed exchange rate, stable. You announce it, and you keep it there, regardless of what the markets would be doing. We've been there before. We kept the exchange rate of the CD pegged at 2.75 cedis. Those of you who are old enough to remember it. A dollar. For years. Years. From roughly about August 1978, to April 83. The resultant appreciation of the real effective exchange rate, talking about the real effective exchange rate at the time, reached something like 445%. We fixed the exchange rate at 2.75. Although we knew that nobody in his right mind was taking his dollars to the bank to get 2.75. Not when right behind the central bank. You could get it for 10. Yet we kept it there. With disastrous consequences for the entire economy, as successive governments failed to take corrective and resolute action, fearing political consequences. But we read the whirlwind. As William reminded us, GDP growth just about ceased and then turned negative. And real per capita income fell by over 30%. I know what it did. It caused about 1 million of our people, mostly from our educated labor force, to flee the country to neighboring countries, mainly Nigeria, in search of greener pastures. Inflation reached at about 116%. It's mind-boggling. You can't imagine it now. Thanks to the huge deficits that we've been financing, essentially through money printing. There were shortages of basic goods, food, thanks again to 2 successive droughts, 75 to 77 and 81 to 83, which have destroyed a substantial acreage of our food and cash crops. University lecturers, and I speak from personal experience, will travel to Lome over weekends, sometimes weekdays, depending upon the severity of your pain. We travel to Lome to buy the basic necessaries of life: milk, soap, toilet paper, and the like. And people were grateful to travel upstanding in articulated trucks to travel long distances across the country, because our transportation system had broken down. With their collarbones, these people traveling in the trucks, with their collarbones exposed by emaciation from having little to eat. Rolling chains, we call them, in our characteristic Ghanaian humor. We owed external payments arrears of upwards of $500 million. Just a huge sum at the time. It still is today. Borrowing from anybody, least of all the capital markets, was simply out of the question. Borrowing from even neighboring, always Nigeria, wasn't possible. It has cut us off from our oil supplies because we owe them millions of dollars in unpaid bills. And just when we thought things couldn't possibly get worse, we suffered a sudden 10% increase in our population, which is about 10 million then. As over a million people, a million of our compatriots who had emigrated to Nigeria mostly, and to a lesser extent Cote d'Ivoire, were simply sent back home. When we had no food, when bushfires were raging, when we thought the world was coming to an end, a million people, a million of our compatriots were sent back home. But we pulled back from the edge of the precipice, climbed out of the deep trough into which the nation had been plunged, and through a painful program of recovery and reconstruction, financed mainly with staggering sums of concessional money, 40 years repayment, 10 years grace, no interest except for administrative charges. Virtually interest-free credit. They helped to restore macroeconomic stability for over a decade and set up the core institutions of a modern, open economy that we have today and take for granted today. All this was done, of course, at great political cost, and for me, some personal sacrifice and pain. I lost my hair. A good many of my friends who would come to my house regularly berating me for doing what I was doing without offering anything in the way of alternatives. I remember my mother, poor old lady, may she rest in peace, would come to my house almost every week. Sometimes tears in her eyes, saying, "Kwesi, ejumani jay, Ghana for 1 year." Why? Because they were insulting her. She was a trader. You go to the market, and people actually insult her, call her Anyan, a witch, who had given birth to another terrible person like me. She would sob and say, "Quit the job." And I'll say, of course, "Yeah, Mojuno, I'll think about it." So the crisis we faced then was unimaginable and infinitely more forbidding. But we survived. At great political cost, needless to say. But we survived as a nation. which is why some of the discussions we are having today on the economy leave me rather bemused. I recount this narrative here briefly just to say that it's a much longer story. So let me not bore you with the gory details. I recount it here to say that our current travails can be overcome provided we level with the people. The solution to a problem starts with recognizing that there is one. It must start with a recognition that there is a crisis. And level with the people. And wind down the hubris, the arrogance, the show of impunity that the people see in some sections of our political elite.